Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parirajikacharya Asto Tarasata Shishi Mad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Prem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shyama Kunda Radha Kundi Giri Govardhana Ki Sri Vrindavan Dham Ki Sri Mayapura Navadvip Dham Ki Sri Purushottam Chetra Ki Sri Ganga Maya Ki Jai Sri Jamuna Maya Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Maharani Ki Jai Harinam Sankirtana Ki Jai Srila Prabhupada's Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Nitai Gaura Premanandi. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. What number have we got? What number have we got up there? All. All. Okay, so that's starting from 13, is it? 12. Okay. So today we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, the Summum Bonum, Chapter 48. Kṛṣṇa pleases his devotees, from text number 12. So is the Sanskrit for 12 there? Yeah, okay, so we'll chant this verse, but we're going to read up to 18 or 19. 19, yeah, okay, thank you. Akrūra bhavanam Kṛṣṇa Saha Rāmaṁ Uddhava Prabhu Kinchit Chikishayan Pragad Akrūra Priyakamyaya Akrūra Bhavanam Kṛṣṇa Saha Rāmaṁ Uddhava Prabhu Kinchit Chikishayan Pragad Akrūra Priyakamyaya Akrūra Bhavanam Kṛṣṇa Saha Rāmaṁ Uddhava Prabhu Kinchit Chikishayan Pragad Akrūra Priyakamyaya Akrūra Bhavanam Kṛṣṇa Saharamodva Prabhu. Vikinshayam pragad. Akrūra priyakamyaya. Akrūra bhavanam Kṛṣṇa. Saharamodva Prabhu. Kinchit chikishayam pragad. Akrūra priyakamyaya. Akrūra bhavanam Kṛṣṇa. Saharamodva Prabhu. Kinchit chikishayam pragad. Akrūra priyakamyaya. Ladies? Akrūra bhavanam Kṛṣṇa. Saharamodva Prabhu. Chikishayam pragad. Akrūra priyakamyaya. Akrūra bhavanam Kṛṣṇa. Saharamodva Prabhu. Kinchit chikishayam pragad. Akrūra priyakamyaya. Akrūra bhavanam Kṛṣṇa. Saharamodva Prabhu. Kinchit chikishayam pragad. Akrūra priyakamyaya. Akrūra bhavanam. The home of Akrūra. Kṛṣṇa. Kṛṣṇa. Saha. With. Rāma Uddhava. Lord Balarāma and Uddhava. Prabhu. The Supreme Lord. Kinchit. Something. Chikishayam. Wanting to have done. Pragat. Went. Akrūra. Of Akrūra. Priya. The satisfaction. Excuse me. Kamyaya. Desiring. Then Lord Kṛṣṇa, wanting to have some things done, went to Akrūra's house with Balarāma and Uddhava. The Lord also desired to please Akrūra. Purport: the previous incident of Lord Kṛṣṇa's visit to Trivakara's house and now his visit to Akrūra's gives a fascinating glimpse into the daily activities of Sri Kṛṣna in Mathura city. Text 13 and 14. Satan nara-vara-śreṣṭhān ārād vīkṣya sva-bāndhavān pratyutthāya pramuditaḥ pariṣvajyābhinandya ca nanāma kṛṣṇam rāmam ca tair abhivāditaḥ pūjayām vidhi-vat kṛtāsana-parigrahān. Akrūra stood up in great joy when he saw them, his own relatives and the greatest of exalted personalities coming from a distance. After embracing them and greeting them, Akrūra bowed down to Kṛṣna and Balarāma and was greeted by them in return. Then, when his guests had taken their seats, he worshipped them in accordance with scriptural rules. Purport: Srila Jiva Goswami points out that Lord Sri Kṛṣna and the others approached Akrūra in a friendly attitude. At first, Akrūra reciprocated that friendly mood, and then, in the course of showing them hospitality, he adopted his natural devotional attitude toward the Lord and thus offered his obeisances to Sri Kṛṣṇa and Sri Balarāma. Text 15 and 16. Pada H.G.Anirudha po Darayan sirasa nripa aharanenam barair ganda shrug bhushanottamai achitva sirasanamya padavanka kato mrijan prasaraya vanato Akrūra kṛṣṇa vapasata. O King, Akrūra bathed the feet of Lord Kṛṣṇa and Lord Balarāma and then poured the bath water on his head. He presented them with gifts of fine clothing, aromatic sandalwood paste, flower garlands and excellent jewellery. After thus worshipping the two lords, he bowed his head to the floor. He then began to massage Lord Kṛṣṇa's feet, placing them on his lap, and with his head bowed in humility, he addressed Kṛṣṇa and Balarāma as follows. Tishya papo hata kamsaha sanugo vamidam kulam bhavadhyam udritam kṛtrad durantatscha sameditam. Akrūra said, "It is our good fortune that you two lords have killed the evil Kamsa and his followers, thus delivering your dynasty from endless suffering and causing it to flourish." Text 18. Yuvam pradhana purusho jagad detu jagan mayo pavadhyam na vina kinchit paramasti na cha param. You both are the original supreme person, the cause of the universe and its very substance. Not the slightest subtle cause or manifest product of creation exists apart from you. Purport. After praising Kṛṣṇa and Balarāma for having saved their dynasty, Akrūra now points out that the Lord actually has no mundane connection with any social or political institution. He is the original personality of Godhead, performing his pastimes for the benefit of the entire universe. And text 19. Apmashrishtam midam vishvam anvavishya svasaktibhi iyate bahuda brahman shruta pratyaksha gocharam. O Supreme Absolute Truth, with your personal energies, you create this universe and then enter into it. Thus, one can perceive you in many different forms, by hearing from authorities and by direct experience. Purport. The grammatical agreement of Shruta Pratyaksha Gocharam in the neuter case with Atmashrishtam Midam Vishvam indicates that the Supreme Lord, by entering his creation with his potencies, makes himself perceivable within the universe. Throughout the Bhagavatam and other authorized Vedic literatures, we often find descriptions of the Lord's simultaneous supremacy over all things and his identity with them. We cannot reasonably draw any other conclusion from Vedic literature than the one powerfully preached by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Achintya Beda Abheda Tattva. That is, the absolute truth is greater than and distinct from everything, since he is the omnipotent creator and controller of all, and simultaneously one with everything, since all that exists is the expansion of his own power. Throughout the Bhagavatam, the steady combination of fascinating pastimes with persistent spiritual philosophy is an extraordinary feature. We are allowed to glimpse and even to relish the spiritual emotions of the Lord and his liberated associates. And yet we are constantly reminded of their ontological position, lest we lapse into a cheap anthropomorphic vision. Thus it is entirely in character with the work that Akrūra, in his ecstasy, glorifies the Lord with precise philosophical prayers. Om Ajnana-timirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Sva-bāndhavān Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate garim yat kripa tamaham bande Sri Gurun Dinatarinam. So, we're seeing Kṛṣṇa and his activities in Mathura, which are a contrast to the activities of Kṛṣṇa in Vrindavan. Very much a contrast. And especially in the previous chapter, we saw the raw emotion of the gopis, the emotion of Vasudeva and the cowherd men, and their deep, spontaneous love and affection for Kṛṣṇa. And of course, that's exemplified pretty much in the month of Kartik as we worship Damodar. And we see the Supreme Controller, who everybody's afraid of, and who everybody wants to be, well, not everybody, but who the Mayavadis want to become one with. Right? They want to become God, practically speaking. His God, the all-powerful, being chased by his mother with a stick, because he's a naughty boy, which is quite endearing and attractive, and a very intimate and close, affectionate relationship. Mother Yashoda doesn't think twice about chastising Kṛṣṇa and tying him up. Which is interesting because here's Kṛṣṇa the Supreme. What is it? Namami Ishvaram. The first statement of the Dhammadarastakam is, I offer my obeisances to the controller. But Mother Yashoda doesn't think of that at all. She's got the controller by the scruff of his neck and threatening him, and then wants to tie him up. So interesting, in that situation, Kṛṣṇa allows his devotees, out of their love and affection for him, he allows them to be greater than himself. Right? They dominate Kṛṣṇa, interestingly. Whereas here we see a very different mood in Mathura. There are exchanges of affection and exchanges of love and embracing and hugging and a show of affection, but it's tempered with a recognition of Kṛṣṇa's greatness, if you like, or relationships where there's acknowledgement of friend, even there's somewhat of a Sakya relationship here between Kṛṣṇa and Balarāma and Akrūra, but there's the offering of respects, the offering of obeisances. So there's a form of etiquette in the relationships that we're seeing here in Mathura that we might not see in Vrindavan. And why the Vrindavan pastimes are so endearing and attractive for the devotees, because there's that intimacy of affection and love. Closeness, if you like. And you know, the emotions that come from those exchanges. Even humour. You know, the gopis were laughing at Mother Yashoda struggling to tie up Kṛṣṇa, and in the Gopal Champu, Jiva Goswami describes how the gopis were laughing at Mother Yashoda and saying, well, you tied him up, you put his dhoti on this morning, how come you can't tie him up now? Right? You tie him up every day with his dhoti, and now you can't do it. Right? But here, we're seeing a much more somber and respectful set of relationships, which is interesting for us because there are etiquettes in dealing with seniors, there's etiquettes in dealing with peers, there's etiquettes in dealing with juniors. Rupa Goswami advises us how we should associate with the devotees. Huh? And we're seeing it here in a number of ways, 2 ways that I thought we could explore. The first one is Kṛṣṇa arrives and then Akrūra hugs him out of a show of spontaneous affection. But then what does he do? He welcomes him as a superior, just like we might do if our spiritual master comes. Or if a senior, a sannyasi, or a renunciate appears, then we offer them respect out of etiquette, out of affection also, but also out of etiquette. So there is an etiquette in dealing with devotees, and that's exemplified here. I remember the 80s, and I think even the early 90s, whenever the spiritual masters would visit the temple, then we would have a formal greeting ceremony, and very much as is described here. And I remember one time Tamal Kṛṣna Maharaj came to Melbourne, and for those who knew Tamal Kṛṣna Maharaj, they knew how much he was into etiquette. He was a very strict upholder of etiquette. And Maharaj came, and Atul Kṛṣna, who you may know, Atul's a teacher, and he was a brahmachari in Melbourne for 8 years or so, and was a Sankirtan devotee, collector, and a solid maintainer of the temple. But Atul also liked to read Prabhupada's books, still does. And when Tamal Kṛṣna Maharaj came, he gave him a gift, just like we see here. Krishna has been given gifts of cloth and ornaments and scents. He prepared a presentation of cloth, and it was sannyasi cloth with copans, right? And I was thinking, well, that's interesting, but Tamal Kṛṣna Maharaj really appreciated it, really appreciated that gift. And if you read in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, this is how Lord Chaitanya was greeted and honoured on occasion when he would visit the devotees. And they would, what do you give a sannyasi? You can't give him fragrant scents and, opulent ornaments, but you can give them the top cloth and the bottom cloth and some copans. And Tamal Kṛṣna Maharaj really appreciated that gift because, I figured he appreciated that Atul Kṛṣna had understood the etiquette of greeting a sannyasi, right? Mind you, Tamal Kṛṣna Maharaj also appreciated being greeted with a garland and with a kirtan and foot bathing ceremony and the like. Well, I'll tell you another story which is a little more humorous and embarrassing for me. But another occasion Tamal Kṛṣna Maharaj came, and it was a Friday night, and he arrived at about 6:30. He'd come from, I think, New Zealand, and I decided the devotees were going on Sankirtan, and because it was a Harinam night, so I decided to postpone the greeting ceremony till the next morning. Right? And on the way back from the airport, we were driving over the Balti Bridge, which is about 3/4 of the way to the temple, and I told him this. And he was extremely upset. And he said to me, "You might as well take me back to the airport and I'll go somewhere else." I thought, okay, all right. Later on, Tamal Kṛṣna Maharaj said to me, he said, "Anirudha, one of the reasons why I like you is because I can say anything to you when you don't get upset." But he was genuinely upset. And I was upset too because I realised I'd made a mistake because I'd broken the etiquette. I hadn't kept the etiquette of greeting the spiritual a sannyasi, a GBC, a guru, right? And I thought it was honestly, or it was motivated by wanting to care for him because he would have been tired from his travel. I thought I was helping him out. But it was a breach of etiquette. So I learned a lesson from Tamal Kṛṣna Maharaj. that we need to maintain etiquettes within the devotee community for good reason. We show our affection and appreciation and ultimately our love for the devotees by maintaining these rules and regulations and these this structure, the environment, this structured environment within which we live is a means by which we're able to appropriately show our appreciation and affection for the devotees. And when you think about it, we have a very structured and ordered environment when we're worshipping Kṛṣṇa. In the deity worship, we have a strict schedule. It's very punctual. And in that way then we have an ordered and structured environment where we can show our love and affection for the deity. And it's not, or it shouldn't be, interrupted or interfered with in our daily worship. You know, I was at the temple one evening, and I noticed that the lights were still on in the temple room, and somebody was in the deity room. And our schedule is 9 o'clock, Sayanati, 9:30, everything should be closed off, right? The temple's closed and lights are off and deities put to rest. And this devotee didn't come out until 10 to 10, and I said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I'm putting Kṛṣṇa to bed." And I said, "What are you doing?" He said, and he's kind of like singing a lullaby to Kṛṣṇa or something, you know, rocking him to. I said, "What are you?" And his excuse was, one of the Vrindavan pujaris who was visiting told me this is how I should worship the deity. And I said, get out of here. We have structure, we have order. You don't make stuff up, right? Because, you know, sometimes people say ours is a spontaneous process. We have we're raganuga. We should aspire to raganuga bhakti. Well, yes, we should, but in the beginning, even an advanced raganuga bhakta follows the rules and regulations as described by Srila Prabhupada. Right? So it's interesting here how there's this reference to another etiquette by Hridayananda Maharaj and the devotees about the Srimad Bhagavatam, and he mentions the unique, extraordinary features of this great work. Whether Kṛṣṇa is sending his message to the gopis or accepting the prayers of Akrūra, there is constant philosophical discussion. The steady combination of fascinating pastimes with persistent spiritual philosophy is an extraordinary feature. We are allowed to glimpse and even to relish the spiritual emotions. So one of the features of the Srimad Bhagavatam is the description of the varieties of devotee and how the varieties of devotee, what is it? Akama, savakama, va, the pure, even those who, just like in this verse we saw previously, not this verse, in this chapter we saw Kubja, who's described as being lusty from a material perspective and wanting to enjoy Kṛṣṇa, and how Kṛṣṇa reciprocated with her. And then we see the gopis and how their apparent lust is described as actually akama, right? We see all of these different relationships. We see Dhruva Maharaj and how he's approaching with a particular mentality but is ultimately purified. So we see the emotional exchanges, but we also hear consistently philosophy. Philosophy to ground us in the order and structure and the appropriate etiquette, depending on our relationship with Kṛṣṇa. And for those of us as neophytes, our relationship ultimately with the spiritual master, because that's the beginning. Dasya is the beginning of the progression to Sakya, Vatsalya, Madhurya. Huh? So, and in fact, even if we're on the Madhurya platform, we'll see there's always the adherence of service to the spiritual master. We see that in Srila Prabhupada's example. Nobody could debate that Srila Prabhupada wasn't on the highest level of bhakti rasa. He's a raganuga bhakta. But how does Srila Prabhupada present himself? Always as a humble servant of his spiritual master. You know, we could assume that Srila Prabhupada is the epitome of Gopi Bhava, like the 6 Goswamis, for example. We were discussing this the other day. The Goswamis are described as being fully renounced, having given up aristocracy as insignificant, vīkṣya, just. And why? Because they're absorbed in the mood of the gopis. So it's reasonable to assume that Srila Prabhupada is on the... If we look at Srila Prabhupada's activities, and if we look at the activities of the Goswamis, what do we see? Same activities. Chanting Hare Krishna, preaching Lord Chaitanya's message, studying the Shastra, translating the Shastra, printing books, ensuring that books are being distributed. These are the activities of the Goswamis. Describing the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, actually living the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya by executing the Sankirtan movement. All activities that Prabhupada encourages us to do, actually. And by doing those activities, gradually we'll be elevated. But still there's an etiquette in doing those, in performing those activities. So, and we see with Srila Prabhupada, he understood and he relished the very intimate exchanges and the intimate pastimes of the gopis and Kṛṣṇa in Vrindavan. He understood and relished those pastimes, described and explained them all for us by presenting the Kṛṣṇa book. Yet, he always maintained, especially if we look at Srila Prabhupada's presentations, we see that he always balanced or maintained this etiquette of relishing the spiritual emotions of Kṛṣṇa consciousness, but always balancing them with persistent, here persistent spiritual philosophy. Right? this is an etiquette, if you like. There's the story of the Gopi Bhava Club in Los Angeles in the early 70s, was it? Where Prabhupada instructed the devotees who had decided at that time, since the Rasa Leela, the 5 chapters of the Srimad Bhagavatam, considered to be the most elevated pastimes, and describing the relationships between Kṛṣṇa and the gopis, this group of devotees had decided that that's all they would recite and all they would explore. But when Prabhupada found out about it, he squashed it. Inappropriate. So what we see in the Bhagavatam is Leela, pastimes, but also tattva. Right? It's interesting here. We've got Hridayananda Maharaj uses a couple of big words here that you may not be. I had to look up just to refresh myself. The first one is we're allowed to glimpse and even to relish the spiritual emotions of the Lord and his liberated associates. Right? So we do that. It's not that we don't relish Leela, because we do. Leela it's the rasa, right? The juice, if you like. Yet we are constantly reminded of their ontological position. Ontological position. Anybody know what ontological means? Okay, who's got their phone with them? Look up, ask Google Dave, what's ontological mean? Ontological, yeah.
Is it related to the meaning of a word?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
I looked it up, so I know what it is, but...
Good morning. Oh, she went away. Okay, you read your...
I don't have it with me, that's why I was asking you.
What does ontological mean?
I found this on the web.
Okay, let's see if we can open this up. What do we want? The Merriam-Webster or the Cambridge Dictionary? Which do we want?
Better hit one of them, otherwise it will disappear.
Yeah, okay. It's come up with anthology. Useless. Hang on. Hang on. I'll see if I've still got it here. Oh no. I've got a recipe for bread pudding. Okay, ontological means basically the essence, or actually sambandha, relationships, right? We need to understand, and this is why we always have this philosophical interpretation of events. Right? And here we've got Akrūra explaining to Kṛṣṇa and Balarāma, it's wonderful, or praising them, it's wonderful that you've killed Kamsa and you've protected our dynasty. Right? And they're glad. The citizens of Mathura and the devotees especially have been harassed and suppressed, repressed by Kamsa for so long. Okay, this is technical. Relating to the branch of metaphysics dealing with the nature of being, right? The nature of being. Sambandha, the nature of relationships, showing the relations between the concepts and categories in a subject, area or domain. Beautiful, thank you. Right, the nature of relationships, sambandha, right? And we need to know that. Sambandha. That's why we're always being reminded you're not the body, you're a spirit soul. You're a servant of Kṛṣṇa. And this is important because, you know, what we notice sometimes with devotees is they read the Leela, they read the Leela, they read the Leela. And then they start thinking, yeah, I'm on that platform. Right? And, you know, just because you think you're something doesn't mean you necessarily are. Right? Have you ever experienced that where you think you're pretty good and then you discover that actually you're just the same person that you used to be? You're not that special. And of course, devotees are special. Right? We're on the path of perfection. And so we're on the way there, but it's very interesting that, especially we see in Srila Prabhupada's character, where even he's such an elevated devotee, yet he presents himself as being very humble. Krishnadas Kaviraj is an amazing example of this, in that we study the Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's the topmost presentation of our philosophy. Yet how does Krishnadas Kaviraj present himself? He says, I'm lower than a worm in stool. If you chant my name, you'll be degraded. Right? But not that we don't take that seriously, but we appreciate his humility. And of course we study his literature intensely because it embodies, you know, pretty much who we are and what we do, right? So there's always the sambandha, the knowledge of the relationships, so that we don't get too carried away with the emotions of the rasa, right? And we're always reminded, there's a check, if you like, there's a check. And it's interesting there's another big word here. We are allowed to glimpse and even to relish the spiritual emotions of the Lord and his liberated associates, and yet we are constantly reminded of their ontological position, lest we lapse into a cheap anthropomorphic vision. Okay, what does anthropomorphic mean? I'm sure it's a word that you all use every day. Huh? Anthropomorphic. What does that mean? You want to look that one up too? Let's get he got a good definition. Anthropomorphic. It's a lot. It might take him a while because it's a big word. Yes, giving someone qualities of a human being. So instead of understanding that we are God-like, what happens is we start imposing human qualities onto God. Right? And of course this is a symptom of sahajarism. Right? That a sahaja starts thinking, yeah, I'm as good as God, when actually they're just imposing their own material conceptions of being, if you like, onto the very being of God. Right? So that's why this etiquette, and we see that with Srila Prabhupada. When Prabhupada was presenting Krishna consciousness, he really didn't, he would give Leela, certainly, but he would always give us the philosophical understanding of things. Everything always thoroughly founded on, based on philosophy. Huh? When I first saw the Hare Krishnas in Adelaide, half a dozen brahmacharis usually, or even only 2 or 3, it wasn't a big temple. And bald heads, saffron cloth, and incredibly fanatical, or at least often the kirtan was led by a devotee called Guru Mandalabhumi, who I owe a great debt to. And Guru Mandalabhumi is one of those devotees, or those individuals who you can see the whites of his eyes, right? And you know, it's a scary sight to always see the whites of somebody's eyes. And he'd be playing the mridanga, really, you know, really intensely. So you see this emotion and this almost flamboyant display of religious fervour. Very scary for people. It was scary for me. I'd especially see Guru Mandalabhumi, and I'd think, boy, if I get mixed up with these guys, that's it, I'm finished. The Hare Krishnas, once they get you, you're gone. Right? But I was attracted to the chanting. I was attracted to the mantra and eventually one of my friends took me to the temple, and I got to hear about the life of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, because it was Bhaktivinoda Thakur's disappearance day. And then after the prasadam, it was the first time I'd had Raj Bhoga, and I can still remember the tomato chutney, sweet tomato, you know, the Bengali sweet tomato chutney. And I was already a vegetarian at that stage. And actually my first book was a cookbook, so I knew something of the philosophy, right? A very little bit. And but then afterwards the devotees showed me the Fairchild projector that you mentioned the other day. They showed me the life and times of Sri Chaitanya and death and dying in Vedic India, right? And after hearing about Bhaktivinoda Thakur's life and seeing the presentation of Lord Chaitanya and what his mission was, and then the philosophy of, you know, death and dying, everything fell into place. The crazy brahmacharis, suddenly it all started to make sense, because I had I could see the philosophical underpinnings of everything, and the culture as well, right? So it's important for us to maintain these cultures. You know, we see it sometimes, devotees want to just get into Leela, and they'll only talk about Leela. And without that deep philosophical underpinning that's absolutely essential for us to get everything in perspective. It's okay to relish the bhava, if you like, right? And we do that. But how do we do that? We do that by Leela, Smarana, but also understanding the sambandha and understanding the abhidaya, you know, the relationships, and then the practice. And Prabhupada basically set the practice for us. And we can see that. Prabhupada always, while he understood the Leela, he underpinned it always with philosophy, sambandha, and example, and in that way demonstrated the values, you know, our culture, where you know, it's rare to find Prabhupada, you know, talking about Kṛṣna Leela, Vrindavan Leela. He does, but he does mostly. Prabhupada presents philosophy and keeps everything very grounded. So it's interesting. We're seeing here in this pastime, Akrūra's welcoming Kṛṣna. He's embracing him, but at the same time keeping the etiquettes. And along with that, the show of affection, which is what our structured, ordered systems are the mechanism by which we can demonstrate that. He then is glorifying Kṛṣna in philosophical terms, which the devotees are pointing out in the purport. That's our culture, really. Our culture is not that we get too carried away with the Leela, but we establish everything solidly in philosophy. And of course that's why Srila Prabhupada has, spent so much time translating his books, ensuring that they're published, making sure they're translated into every language in the world. We present. When I first saw the brahmacharis, I was thinking, well, and I know a lot of people. When I first rang up my mother and I said, I'm living in the Hare Krishna temple in Melbourne, my mum said, "Oh no, Andy, you sound like a parrot already." Right? So because she'd just seen the show of devotional fervour, but she didn't understand the philosophy, right? Because I said, "Mum, I haven't said anything yet. I just said hello," right? But my brother had been telling her what I was up to. He was spying on me. But later my mum said to me, she said, "I was embarrassed that my son became a Hare Krishna." But she said, but then I was embarrassed because I didn't know why I was embarrassed. Because later on she found out more and more and more about what we were doing. And this is why Prabhupada wanted us to distribute his books. And not just distribute the books, read the books. Maharaj mentioned the other day how Prabhupada, in Melbourne actually, Prabhupada kind of chastised the devotees. You think my books are for selling, not for reading. But Prabhupada wanted us to read. That way then philosophically we're well situated, and we're able to then actually, armed with that philosophy, we're able to see internally also and recognise the anarthas within ourselves. Otherwise, just read Leela, and we are not well equipped to pursue the path of self-realisation, which is really to be self-analytical. Right? And of course, what's the symptom of somebody who's self-analytical? Like the Goswamis, equal to everybody, very humble, congenial, friendly, right? and devout, of course, but humble. Whereas what I've noticed sometimes is devotees who just studying Leela, they think they're very elevated, and then they start criticising others. Whereas we see with Srila Prabhupada of course, Prabhupada was a bit of a firebrand, right? But his demeanour was very humble. Right? So, thank you. There's a few thoughts that I had on these topics. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki. I've gone over time, Panchagauda. Do we have a question or a comment from the Vaishnavas? Please bless us. Where's our roaming mic? He's got a hand up.
When you spoke about anthropomorphy, you said that the devotees should think that they have divine qualities. What is the difference between that attitude and Darwinism? Where does this borderline lies?
Can you just say the first sentence again for me, please? No, what you said, I just didn't hear it very clearly, that's all.
When you were talking about anthropomorphy,
Yes, yes.
devotees, they should not think of themselves that they are equal to God, or they have divine qualities.
Yes,
They should be
yes.
very humble.
Yes,
So they should rather think that they are very mundane and very, materialistic.
yes.
Conditioned souls. Where is this borderline between this attitude and Darwinism?
And what was that last word?
Darwinism, the original species, that says, that denies Darwinism, the theory of Darwin.
Oh, Darwinism.
Yes.
Darwinism, oh my God. Let's keep Darwin out of this. Okay. Yeah, that's a challenge. A good question, yep. Srila Prabhupada explains Darwinism in an evolution in the sense that the living entities are gradually elevated from the lower species through the process of transmigration up to the higher species of life, which culminate in the human form, right? And the human form, if we analyse it, and this is just an observation, the human form is a mix or a blend of both animal and godly or divine characteristics, right? And in the human form, we've got the opportunity to uncover and realise our original spiritual identity. Whereas in the lower forms, that siddha deha or that nitya siddha position is covered, and the facilities afforded to the living entity in those forms are such that one can't realise one's full potential, right? So the human form is the most godlike, right? And the mistake that most make is that they propose that we have created God so that God looks like us. That's anthropomorphism. But the Shastra teaches us, Srila Prabhupada teaches us, the Acharyas teach us that the human form of life is the most like that of the devas or the demigods or the denizens of the spiritual realm, and that it's a stepping stone or it's an opportunity to approach our spiritual identity, right? And even in the Bible it said man is made in the form of God, right? It is a very basic philosophy that is understood in many religious cultures. And so it's not a surprise for us to discover that God has 2 hands and 2 arms and 2 legs, and we look like him, right? It's not a surprise. But, materialistically contaminated intellects get it wrong and think God is like us, and that the process of evolution is we came from monkeys, right? And Achincharipa was reading something yesterday, and one of the devotees had made a comment, well, what happened to the monkeys? How come we still got monkeys? Right? If humans came from monkeys, how come the monkeys are still there? Monkeys should have disappeared, and they should just be humans, right? But, they're obviously different species. They're obviously created entirely differently, right? But let's not get into Darwinism. Darwinism is a bit of a freak show. Is that okay? Does that make sense? Yeah. There's another hand up over here. Hare Krishna. One more? Yeah. Over there, there's a hand up.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I don't know about the Kṛṣṇa. I'm from Bombay. I'm studying in the Kṛṣṇa hostel. I want to ask you about the information of the Kṛṣṇa. Who's the Kṛṣṇa?
Who is the Kṛṣṇa?
Yeah. Sorry, I don't know actually.
No, that's okay. That is a great question. Okay, I will quote Lord Brahma, Ishvaraha Parama Kṛṣṇa. Kṛṣṇa is the supreme controller. Ishvaraha Parama Kṛṣṇa Sat Chit Ananda Vigraha. He has a form of eternality, knowledge and bliss. Right? Anadi Adi Govinda. He is the cause of everything, but he himself has no cause. Sarva-karana-karanam. He is the cause of all causes. Start with that. Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Hare Krishna. Very nice question. Thank you. Hare Krishna, everybody. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Hare Bol. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.